Hey y'all, quick thought on the Parsha. So back last week in Parshat Teshuva, we spoke about the physical blemish of tzarat that could appear on a person's skin. And this week in Parshat Metzora, I want to speak about the actual person who has tzarat, the Metzora, and what exactly he represents and what exactly we're supposed to take away from him. And if we look at the process of the Metzora, there's a lot of strange things that goes on. Right, the Metzora, after he's declared to have had tzarat, has to sit outside of the camp for 7 days with torn clothes, and he can't cut his hair, he has to grow out his hair. And then after 7 days, he comes back into the camp, his whole body gets shaved, he goes into a mikvah, and then the Kohen does this weird ritual where he takes blood and he takes oil and puts it on the Metzora's right ear and his right thumb and his right big toe. So what's going on all here? There are all these actions that seem symbolic, but what exactly are they symbolic of? So a nice idea I heard from one of my rabbeim in yeshiva, Rav Amnon Bazak, is the following. Right, take the first half of the actions that happens to the Metzora. He sits outside of the camp for 7 days, and he has to tear his clothes and he has to grow out his hair. What does this remind us of? Someone who's sitting shiva. But who exactly is the Metzora sitting shiva for? You normally sit shiva if your relative passes away. None of the Metzora's relative passed away. Unless the Metzora isn't sitting shiva for someone else, but he's sitting shiva for himself. Right? Chazal compare a Metzora to a mate, to someone who passed away. The Metzora is seemingly sitting shiva for at least some aspect of himself. And then he gets back into the camp, and what happens? His whole body is shaved, he goes into a mikvah, he comes out. It's almost as if he's being reborn. There's no hair on his body like a newborn baby. Water represents life. It's like he's coming out fresh as a newborn child. And then he has his blood and oil put on his ears and his thumbs and his toes. The only other time this happens in the entirety of the Torah is back a couple weeks ago in Parshat Shmini, when the Kohanim were being inaugurated as the ones who were going to do the service. After 7 days, they also had blood put on their ears and on their thumbs and on their toes. It's something that represents starting anew, rebirth. The Kohanim were starting their new lives. They were stepping into a new role, and the Metzora also is being reborn and stepping into a new role. And he goes through this process where first he steps outside of the camp and sits shiva for himself. He's mourning a part of himself that has passed away. Then he's being reborn into a new person. Goes through the symbolic act of rebirth. He looks like a newborn child. He goes through the same rituals as someone who's becoming a new person. And this is all something that's very intentional, right? Like we mentioned last week, the Torah doesn't tell us why a person gets tzarat. Seemingly, according to Chazal, a person gets tzarat because they sinned. But we don't know what sin this person actually did. And maybe that's intentional, because what matters is not what sin the Metzora did, but rather the fact that he sinned. He sinned and he has to do something about it. And the Torah is telling us, what do you do when you sin? Well, you have to go through the process of the Metzora. First, you have to mourn the part of yourself that did the wrong thing. Then you have to be reborn into a new person. The Rambam in Hilchos Teshuva says this is exactly how Teshuva works, right? Because think about it. How does it make sense that I do something wrong, then I ask God to forgive me and say, God, don't punish me, pretend like that thing never happened, and then God just forgets that the thing ever happened? The thing did happen. The history existed. Except the Rambam describes when a person does Teshuva, they're essentially telling Hashem, I have now become a new person. And therefore, if you want to punish someone for that sin, punish that guy, the guy I was last week. But the guy I am today, this is a totally new person. This guy, this new person, has never committed the sin. When we do Teshuva, we make ourselves into new people. And that's exactly what the Metzora is doing. He's sitting shiva for the old version of himself, and he's becoming a new person. So, yes, we're the furthest point of the year from the Aseret Yemei Teshuva, from Rosh Hashanah, from Yom Kippur. We're 6 months away, 7 months away this year. This isn't the time where people are normally thinking about Teshuva. But Teshuva isn't something that's reserved for 10 days of the year. Teshuva, the idea of self-improvement, of growing, of becoming closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, is something that needs to be on our minds every single day. So take this idea of the Metzora. Let's constantly work on becoming better people and becoming new people, and versions of ourselves that aren't contaminated. And if there are things that we don't like, then we have to make sure we take care of them. And quote-unquote sit shiva, quote-unquote mourn that aspect of ourselves, and then become a reborn person, a new, fresh, and revived person who's able to serve Hashem with a clean slate, just like the Metzora. Okay? Everyone have a great Shabbos. Bye-bye.